Peace, power, and love. It's your one and only Khonsu Sheshmu Amun, and I'm here live on a Sunday. I wanted to reflect on some things. I had a conversation with the Queen Neferkov team all set in regards to a subject matter, and it kind of sparked me to want to have a discussion. To reflect on some things. I had a conversation with in regards to the moral compass of African Americans, or African America, however you see it, or Americana. I wanted to expound on it in the sense of what is our moral compass as Africans who happen to be Americans? What would be our moral compass? What would be considered right or wrong? When are we right or wrong? According to what moral precepts that are centered toward our particular ethnic culture? So the first question that I'll put out there is, and I'll put this out here to the family and to the live audience that's listening in. What is morally correct and incorrect for an African American? What are some of the morally correct things that we practice as African Americans? Give me some examples. Give me some working examples that are ethnic based and not legally based. Brother Melvin and Brother Neferkov, the floor is open.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of the question again?
Yeah. What is morally correct to an African American? What would be deemed morally correct or incorrect to present day African Americans? Where do we, or better yet, where do we get our moral precepts from?
I think our moral precepts come from a hodgepodge of different cultures. I don't know if everything that we consider morally correct is ethnically ours. I think it's kind of a mixture of both cultures. So an example of that may be, many of us grew up and our parents spanked us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know that in many states, spanking a child, especially with an object, is against the law. And it's something that you can go to jail for. But that's a part of our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that's something that we embrace as a culture, certain disciplinary actions that we take with our children, but then we'll take our baby mama or baby daddy or ex-husband or ex-wife for child support, which is one of the things that we talked about. And we know how damaging that could be to include the law or the system in our private lives and our family life, because it's not, these laws and the system wasn't designed to benefit us at all for the most part. So I think it's a mixture of both. And I think we need to acknowledge that and see what parts of it may work for us and what really doesn't.
So do we have some examples? Can we give some working examples? I know you gave the spanking issue, or what we call beating. I'll beat it down. I'm gonna beat you if we do that. That's a cultural precept that we deem as normal. And we sometimes put the moniker of non-physical parent rearing to a European. We'll kind of label that on European, won't we? And kind of equate that to why their children may not necessarily be raised properly, correct?
Right.
But that's not necessarily indicative to constructive child rearing, that it is a requirement that we beat our children.
Right. I would agree. I mean, I think it's an individual thing. It's subjective. I think it depends on the child. Like me, for example, I was the type of child. Has my mom ever spanked me? My dad never spanked me. Has my mom ever spanked me? Yes. but she really didn't have to, because I was the kind of child that if you spoke to me, I listened. You didn't have to go the extra mile and do anything outside of that. If you told me, hey, don't do this, I don't like it, my mother said it made, if I made her upset or hurt her feelings, that would be enough for me, for the most part. But some children, you could talk until you damn blue in the face and they just don't get it. You know what I mean? Like you might have to lay a hand and, to get it right. So I don't think that it's a one size fits all type of thing, but I think many of us were raised with that one size fits all paradigm. When you do something wrong, you're going to get your ass, and that's just the bottom line.
So let me read an excerpt, because I didn't have an opportunity to actually took a photo of it. Brother Melvin, who happens to be on the panel. Brother Melvin, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Peace to the
peace family.
Peace to the family in the live stream.
Yep.
Peace now for Kyle.
This is crucial. Let me read this. This is an excerpt from a book, W.E.B. Du Bois. Who was this written by, Mel?
Are you talking about the one I put out today?
Yes.
Let me get the name for you really quickly.
Okay. And while he's getting that, you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
His name is, hold on. It's Jonathan S. Kahn. That's the author.
Okay. Is that spelled C-O-H-N, I believe?
No, it's K-A-H-N.
Jonathan S. Kahn. Okay, for everybody out there. But I'm going to read an excerpt from it. And I thought it was appropriate for this discussion. This discussion is wide. Okay, it's not a concise discussion, because it is really dealing with the quantum mechanics of our moral compass and how ultimately, in my opinion, it is affected by white supremacy and racism, which promotes subliminal bigotry between our race, our ethnic group. And we live in a false paradigm of precepts, a false paradigm of right and wrong, what's morally correct and wrong. And one example I want to talk about is our parenting and our child rearing and the socialization of the black man and black woman juxtaposed to the family of the black man and the black woman. So I want to get into that quantumization of that. But let me read this observation from this author. This is about W.E.B. Du Bois, of course. He says W.E.B. Du Bois is an improbable candidate for a project in religion. His skepticism of and even hostility towards religion is readily established and canonically accepted. Indeed, he spent his career rejecting normative religious commitments to institutions and supernatural beliefs. In this book, Jonathan Kahn offers a fresh and controversial reading of Du Bois that seeks to overturn this view. Okay, Kahn is saying that what was publicly thought of Du Bois, he had a different aspect. Okay? And let's see here. Wait a minute, I lost my point. Kahn contends that the standard treatment of Du Bois turns a deaf ear to his writings. For if we were to open their religious timber, those writings from his speech, his epoch-making the souls of black folk, to his unstudied series of parables that depict the lynching of an African American Christ, reveal a virtual obsession with religion. Du Bois's moral, literary, and political imagination is inhabited by religious rhetoric, concepts, and stories. Divine discontent recovers and introduces readers to the remarkably complex and varied religious world in Du Bois's writings. It's a world of sermons, of religious virtues such as sacrifice and piety, of Germans that fight for a Black American nation within the larger nation, unlike other African American religious voices at that time. However, I'll finish here. Du Bois's take on, however, Kahn shows how Du Bois self-consciously marshals religious rhetoric, concepts, typologies, narratives, virtues, and moods in order to challenge traditional Christian worldview in which events function to confirm a divine order. Du Bois's anti-metaphysical religious voice, he argues, places him firmly in the American tradition of pragmatic religious naturalism, typified by William James. So this innovative reading of Du Bois should appeal to scholars of American religion, intellectual history, African American studies, and philosophy of religion. Now I'm going to ask the panel, based on this observation of a critical reader of Kahn's work, what is that superimposing? Because what it sounds like to me is the religion of culture. We actually take these norms and beliefs that eventually become part of our social institutions. Even the perception of W.E.B. Du Bois. Was it and is it an actual perception that this particular person did not adhere to African spirituality under an American construct? Or was it the opposite? Was W.E.B. Du Bois that detrimental to us? Go ahead, panel, I'll open the floor.
Well, I've voiced my opinion about W.E.B. Du Bois and how people actually have such a strong opinion against him. I think a lot of what somebody brings to the community has a lot to do with their experience and their upbringing. And I think a lot of the things that he, and especially initially, a lot of the ideas that he came out with were just a reflection of how he grew up. I don't think he grew up like a lot of the Black people did at his time. He came from a different environment. He was educated. He was, from what I understand, he came from a pretty affluent background. So to him, this is what was going to help his people. I don't think he related to the struggles that many people faced. I think he tried to. And I think once he understood it a lot better, he changed his perspective and his paradigm. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that we should just throw away everything that he ever said because of some of the things, the more controversial things that he did say, especially early on. So, I think it's an interesting perspective. And I think these are interesting questions that we're asking here today because it kind of makes you question how much of a European mindset do we have? But then if we are going to be here in America, how much of it do we throw away and say, you know what, this isn't African, this isn't African centered, so this is no good for me. So that's my answer. I hope I answered the question effectively. I'm not sure if I did. You're on mute.
That was well said. Well said. Most understood. I'm Brother Melvin. Peace to Brother Heru. Brother Melvin, your perspective. This is a book that you've put in the Team Osiris library, which is, and you could briefly talk about that too, the actual library that we have that's an open resource to the public. Kind of talk about that and after you give me your opinion. on this particular literary work? Yeah, I can't hear you, Brother Mel. Can everybody hear him?
No, I don't hear him. Maybe
Brother,
he's a bad connection.
yeah, he probably does, because I know the weather's been, I don't know how the weather is out there where he is, but I know it's kind of off and on everywhere. Okay, so I'm waiting on Mel. Brother Heru, you just came in, so I don't know if you're up to speed or not. I see Melvin is going to try to jump back in. Do you need to be brought up to speed, or
Yeah.
did you hear the, well, you did you follow the post on Facebook of Melvin with the book on W.E.B. Du Bois?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, with all due respect, because I don't want to put you in la la land, we'll move on, and then we'll kind of digress back into that. But the overall effects, everybody, what I'm talking about is what we do on a day-to-day. Let's take the common young man, let's say 23 years old, living in a neighborhood that's impoverished, and he happens to be a drug dealer. Let's just use that, because that's always a popular moniker, a popular label that sometimes we get stuck with, a stigma. Would we say, according to our standard, would that be a derelict? Would that be a reckless individual in our neighborhoods? I open the floor. Would that person be a bad guy? And according to what standards is that person a bad guy?
From my perspective of living that lifestyle at one point in my life, no. And being amongst others that are living that kind of life, no. I didn't see myself as a bad guy, nor did I think that I was doing anything bad. Was I conscious of what I was doing? Absolutely. But of course, I'm living in an area or a neighborhood that we don't have the resources that other people have. We didn't have too many after school programs. We didn't have too many things for us to do. All we had was a basketball court or you sell dope. It's pretty much our only two options that we had. I'm a bigger guy. I could play ball, but that wasn't my thing. I wanted the money, so I did what I did. And I made that decision. Luckily, I'm here to tell about it. But do I think that bad people? Absolutely not, because you're doing what you're trying. You're doing what you can to survive. I wasn't out there purposely harming people or trying to do anything bad to them. I just seen it as, hey, these people got a demand, and I'm gonna be the supply. That's the way I seen it at the time when I was doing it. I yield the floor.
Brother Mel, how about you?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
All right. I do agree with the sister Nefaka and Brother Heru for what they said. Me personally, I feel like with Du Bois, we gotta kind of take his information with a grain of salt, kind of sift out what's useful, and then the rest, because he comes from a different background. His upbringing totally different from most Black people in America. So he's gonna offer some positive things that we can find useful, but his entire observation of life from his perspective does not always apply to us. And you're gonna have those, religious, socio-political views that he does if you continue to follow all of his recommendations throughout. And that's where you kind of fall into the romanticism and the whole Pan-Africanism with him.
Well said. Now, for respect to the question I posed when you dropped off, The question is this in respect to your initial answer. What about the neighborhood 23-year-old drug dealer that lives in this community? Maybe this community is impoverished. Maybe there's certain vehicles that are not available for this person's success. Maybe it is. However, this person, are they a good person or a bad person? And to what standards would you hold that person at being either? What standard would you hold? According to what precept?
Me personally, it would depend on their family values. If whatever it is that they're doing is providing the most value to their family, then who am I to judge? Like many of us who grew up in the hood, it's either ball or the streets, and a lot of people view that as a negative because it doesn't seem proper and whatnot. But to that family, that's a necessary need, and that's a high value to that family. So therefore, that person, regardless of the society, has the utmost respect for what they're doing. In my case, my family viewed education and school. So you would you would expect Du Bois to apply to certain fields, and that's why I said you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt because it doesn't always apply to all Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it just depends on your family values. If your family needs somebody to go out and get some money real quick to keep the lights on and food in the fridge, then that's what it is. You can't judge it. That's just the family society and what they need at the time. And that applies to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my personal view on that.
Brother Off Code, peace to the famo. Your opinion.
Peace to the famo. You said, is this person a bad person? And by what standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to use the term bad, you know what I'm saying? Because unfortunately, like we said last night, we're in a quandary of the white domination, and the standard is always white. Okay. How can I tackle this shit? That's an interesting question. I would have to think more about that.
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying? But,
much respect to that.
I do want to say this though. There are words thrown around amongst some of us like agent, right? Now, for me, analyzing that shit, I don't know one of us who aren't an agent contractually, signing up for fucking Facebook.
Good point.
Huh?
Great point. Go ahead.
We throw these terms around and shit, and I suspect we don't take a lot of things into consideration. We kind of like regurgitate a lot of shit that we hear. And I think it's something to think about.
I like what you said at the end. I'm going to expound on that in a minute. When you said we acquiesce to contracts, very powerful. Queen Neferkar.
I think it's a pretty complicated answer to that question. I believe, especially if you look at in the past, you look at someone like a Nikki Barnes, somebody like that, when that kind of a lifestyle was really glorified.
Mm-hmm.
They did do a lot of good things in the community, but I mean, you can't negate the awful things that came as a result of what they did. But then at the same time, we know that the drugs that was brought into the community, especially during those times, we didn't bring those drugs in the community. And the powers that be made it so that those drugs stayed there. You wasn't getting no drugs past 103rd in Harlem. You wasn't, or 96th Street. It was not in any way that you were going to get drugs in that area. So, I mean, good and bad, I really don't know how to, I don't know if you could really put it in that, that paradigm. It's complicated. For somebody like Carew said, who has limited resources and opportunities, then it's a path that they may choose to take, but you can't ignore the fact that the path that they're taking is destroying their community at the same time. I mean, and maybe not so much now, even though, drugs are still prevalent in our communities. It's not as much of an epidemic as it was then, or maybe in the 80s. But people's livelihoods and people's families were torn apart by drugs, by crack, and by the heroin epidemic. That's just the truth. Now, the truth of the matter too, and another thing that I wanted to add is that those epidemics, obviously, when they were in our communities, it wasn't looked at the same way. We do have a heroin epidemic in this country right now, but you don't hear about it because it's something that white people are really suffering from. And then when you think about good and bad in that paradigm, it's completely different. Because when someone's a white heroin addict, then we know that the first thing that happens is that person gets help. You don't even hear about the person that they got the damn heroin from. They're just somebody who's sick. And then now we have these clinics that are opening up, but they can get needles and all of this stuff, and bring in the dirty needles and trade them in for clean needles and all of that other kind of thing. And they're trying to raise funding and awareness so that these people could get help. But I'm pretty sure that, in the past, they didn't have those kinds of that kind of funding for those types of centers like they do now, especially when it was affecting our community. So I don't know if I would see a drug dealer as a bad person per se, but I would not ignore the fact that they're doing something and they're bringing something into the community, or perpetuating something that does have a destructive element in our community. That's just the truth.
I want to offer some empirical data, and I want to use the perspective of a quote unquote classified Caucasian. And this particular Caucasian, European, Asian, I actually value their opinion from an observational point of view. This is Jane Elliott, and I want you guys to listen to her account on white supremacy.
Well, there are a number of things that have sprung to mind watching it. Do you feel guilty about being white?
Not at all. I didn't choose it. I can't lose it. Why would I feel guilty about it?
Do you think there are things white people should feel guilty about? All white people should feel guilty about?
Behaviors, white behaviors, yes. But I don't think you do those things because you're white. I think you do those things because you're ignorant.
So you're conditioned to do these things,
Absolutely.
to be racist?
Absolutely. And it works. The conditioning is working, has worked for a very long time.
Do you think all white people are racist?
I think if you graduated from high school and you aren't a racist, you weren't listening. You should have gotten an F in social studies.
So that's a yes. All white people are racist.
We are conditioned to the myth of white superiority from the moment of in fact, before birth. We are conditioned to the myth of white superiority.
Some people who watched these events today they'll have this interpretation of it, and just bear me out on it. That you met these people, you brutalized them to some extent, you were very hard on them, you made them insecure, you made them question all sorts of things about themselves.
Did you ever see a lynching? Of course you did. Would you like to?
Let's stick with the tradition of me asking the questions.
No, let's stick with this. What I do looks brutal to white people because that isn't something they have to live with all day, every day.
But you know the accusation. The accusation is you're manipulating them.
Of course I am.
And that's wrong. You're playing with their feelings.
Yes, and it's wrong when it's done on a grand scale in society. It's even more wrong, but we do it all the time.
You've been doing this for more than 4 decades.
Yeah.
What do you think people are going to say the legacy of Jane Elliott is?
Don't care.
You must care. You've
Don't
been
care.
doing this to change behavior and make the world a better place. You must care.
Don't care. What people say about me is of little importance to me. Did I make a difference today? Did I make a difference today? Did I make a positive difference today in the area of racism? And
so, Jane Elliott paints a picture of, I think, an uncomfortable truth. I think something that we need to take accountability for. Understanding the overall, the overall scope of white supremacy, racism, and the systematic bigotry between non-white people. Now, based on what Ms. Elliott is talking about, we came with a moral judgment, right? We said that the 23-year-old that is impoverished doesn't seem to have the ability to correct maybe some dysfunctional issues, turns to drug dealing as a means of survival, right? Well, according to law, the drug dealer is illegal. According to whose law? And whose culture's law? Now, legally, this is what the brother also talks about, how we acquiesce to contracts that are not culturally based. They're based on a general consensus of American people through legislature and politics that govern our social lives and direct our social capital as ethnic people. So is that a positive reinforcement, these particular laws that are set in place for us? So this is the next question. I'll pose it to the back chat and I'll pose it to the panel. Are the laws we follow, American laws here in America, are they based on intent for our well-being, or are they byproducts of white supremacy? I'll open the floor. Not everybody jump out at once. Anyone can speak on it.
It's a very, very tough question, not because it can't be answered, but just because upon answering it, you start realizing that you got to put shit in priority and prioritize your shit. To me, there's no benefit necessarily to a particular race or ethnic group or class of people. I think it's primarily a set program or a set system that only benefits those who are aware of it or those who know how it functions. I can use an example, and it may not correlate, but for the sake of the audience, I'll use a game like sports, a basketball or football, and how you have to understand the rules of this game in order to properly play the game and successfully win within the parameters. Now, of course, there are rules and there are laws and there are limitations, and you can get penalized for not following them. But just because they're there doesn't mean that you can't still play the game, doesn't mean that you still can't have fun. And some people may take that and say, okay, well, that's a race-based situation. But I think with the system, they've equaled the race battle out. And now it's more about, okay, if you understand what you're in and you understand how it functions, you too can properly maneuver within it without necessarily being unaware of how it functions and how it moves. And I think when we look at that, a lot of times we want to assume that there's some type of conspiracy theory against us, because we like the conspiracy theories with that. But when you really look at it and you really break it down, it kind of, to me, it removes the idea of a conspiracy theory, and it kind of lets you know that you got to do what you got to do to maneuver.
Mm.
That's my piece.
Okay, okay, I dig it. Queen Africa, how about you?
I think the laws that we live by are supposed to maintain order. I don't know if they're always rooted in right and wrong. I don't think a lot of it has to do with right and wrong. It just has to do with maintaining a certain level of order.
That's what Donald Trump said. I didn't mean you were saying it. He actually said that.
There's a reason why the legal drinking age here is 21, but in Spain is 16.
Why would you say?
I don't really know what the reasoning is behind it, but I'm quite sure the powers that be have a reason why. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why the age of consent, as far as sex is concerned, is different ages according to different states. I mean, these are all things where 150 years ago, a 14-year-old girl can marry a 50-year-old man. That was legal. But it's not legal today. There's a reason why prostitution is legal in Nevada, but it's illegal everywhere else. Like, it's not rooted in right and wrong. It's rooted in maintaining a certain order.
Well said.
Culture.
I agree. The society determines that. I definitely agree with that.
Stick with that word society, because I want you to remember
right,
that
because society, what do you mean by society determines that? Because we don't necessarily determine that. We're told that, and then it becomes something that's understood. It becomes a societal norm, but it's not something that we necessarily dictate.
Just hold on to that.
People don't dictate
But
that.
I mean, okay, like for instance, the 14-year-old being able to marry a 50-year-old, doesn't a society determine whether that should be allowed or not? And the
But we
reason why it
gotta
goes from
understand,
state to state and that it varies.
the society may determine why, but why is it? Why do you think that? And mind you, I don't agree with it. So before anybody starts saying that I think 14-year-old girls should marry 50-year-old men, that is not what I'm advocating at all. But there's a reason why. There's a reason why that law is the way that it is. And it's not because somebody thought it's wrong for 50-year-old men to marry 14-year-old girls. It's because of certain other things that have nothing to do with right and wrong. Right now, we live in a society where, for the most part, women work. We work, okay? We work, we make a living. Sometimes a lot of times we don't necessarily have to get married to do so. But back when that was legal, did women work? No, they didn't. And if you had a large family, then a 14-year-old girl was an extra mouth to feed, and she needed to get out of your house and have someone take care of her so that she can make her own family. That's really what it boiled down to. It had nothing to do with the rightness or wrongness of anything.
Brother Offco, what's your 2 cents?
I asked the question again. I was in spending money with these white folks.
Oh goodness, man, that was such it's hard for me to rephrase. I want to phrase it properly, like I originally did. How can I say this? Okay. When it comes to the properties of what Miss Elliott said, and we look at perception of what's lawful, what's considered lawful, are the laws established in America conducive to our well-being or byproducts of white supremacy?
Well, I suspect that it's everything that's created under white domination is for the benefit of, fucking white domination. You know what I'm saying? White people got a term called stratification. And I've been trying to push this for a minute to attempt to move us away from this, this whole goddamn thought process of black is our color. That's not my fucking color. That's my position that was given to me in the society. And stratification implies that tier system. There, white on top, black on the bottom, everything else is in between. So they make that shit specifically for their own, whether it be to control their ass or the so-called benefit them, to the detriment of the group that they classify us in, which is black. Can we and do we use those laws? Absolutely. But hell, however, most of us don't even know the motherfucking laws at all. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay. So and that's well said, because we do have to understand stratification. Brother Haru, your opinion, sir.
Well, my opinion is most of what's in effect is it's for order to a certain extent, but I don't think it was ever meant for us per se. And when I say us, I mean like African Americans, because you got to remember they had a whole different set of rules for us that we had to follow, apart from the ones that they already had for themselves. And the only reason that we have or we don't have to deal with some of those rules that they had before is because of things like civil rights movement, other ethical and moral things that would go along with that. So now we have somewhat assimilated to the law that they have, but you also notice that when it comes to us, these laws and these statutes enforced on us a little bit tougher than they are themselves. There's no secret. So from the perspective of an African American, I would say this is something that's created to further white domination, because they can do the same things we can do, but they can get a little slap on the wrist or no punishment at all. But when it comes to us, they'll throw the entire book at us. So it's that's my opinion on that situation right there.
Well said. Straight and to the point. So knowing that these laws, in my opinion, these laws are designed for white supremacy, and they're not necessarily morally correct, but they're lawful based on a society's perception. And that particular society happens to be white supremacist. White people benefit, even through ignorance, from white supremacy, as they are merely polarized from that act. Non-white people suffer the repressive acts of this oppression in a systematic fashion. Case in point, the drug dealer. Is the drug dealer acting as a white supremacist if they happen to be of a different ethnic base in a community where no other things are offered? And when they are offered, they're still under the auspicity of another society's moral compass. Because these laws are supposedly supposed to have a moral compass to them. This is what's interesting about the African American moral compass, because where does our compass lie? What does it point to when it comes to right and wrong? When it comes to justice? How do we know what justice is if we're not juxtaposed against the worldview? Where is our gross domestic product? What is the African American's GDP? What is our product that we produce as ethnic people to give us fair objectivity and subjectivity in a caste system? What are we openly and freely allowed to produce? I asked the panel.
Let me tackle that right quick,
Go ahead,
right?
man.
I'll be on them words like a motherfucker. I'm suspicious of the term fair in contrast with us. You know what I'm saying? Anything that has to do with association with white people and shit, that's fair. Fair Housing Act. It's like you saying we want to be treated white. You know. As far as the GDP thing, unfortunately, from my perspective, it's new slaves. That's our current GDP. I'll leave that right there.
Well said, bro. Queen Neferka. Boy, I'm getting some interesting responses in the back chat. Go ahead, Queen.
I don't think we have a gross domestic product. I mean, every time we get one, we kind of give it away. So
wait till you, oh man. We gonna go there, Queen. You know, we touched on that earlier. Yes, yes. This is the perfect way. Go ahead, Brother Melvin. It's deep.
Yeah, it was already mentioned in the chat. I have to say labor. It was one of the main reasons why we were in the position that we were here as African Americans. And now they no longer need us for the mass production. But anytime we want to do something, usually labor is the only way we're able to maneuver and produce anything.
All right. Brother Heru.
Yeah, gross domestic product was hip hop. We seen what happened with that.
It's funny. Is that your answer, bro?
That's my answer.
I hear a lot of people in the back chat that saying music. Music and labor, right? Let me ask this question.
I think they're one and the same. This is me, though.
Let me ask this. There was a term before we called it labor. Labor is a modern term that white supremacists use to adjust to the evolution of their science. In medieval times, it was called servile arts. Okay? And it was a term that was deemed to those that were part of the casting system, the laborers, the less than. You were a laborer and you were treated as such. You weren't part of the hierarchy. When we talk about labor and we talk about music, you say that our gross domestic product is music. What facet of music do we own and produce ever in the history of music in America? We own the manufacturing and the distribution of any music.
Currently, no, but at one point in time,
and that's why I say they're one and the same.
When did we? When did
I still say to put for those of us that produce music, because we're not directly benefiting from it as a collective, and it's not owned by the person whose voice is being used, then they are a laborer, not in the same sense of when doing hard work and sweating and whatnot, but technically they are a laborer because they're only being paid a wage for what they sing or what they rap or what they write. It's not, they're not functioning as a self-owned person who, whenever they put out a record, they own all the proceeds.
Correct.
They're going through loops and contracts and whatnot. So by the time they get anything, it was considered a loan. So they're laborers. That's why I see the same, because there's no owners. You can look at NWA's example for that.
Well, I'm not trying to. I didn't ask that question to expose the polarity of labor, i.e. producer. I put this out here to determine what we own, because a gross domestic product is created by a society, i.e. an economy. But we have no ownership in this economy because we don't grossly produce anything that's domesticated within this paradox of ethnic group called Black.
Well, I think
like Fox,
that we do.
One second,
I'm sorry.
1 second. Fox, Universal, CBS, Sony is not tied into a Black family that then reciprocates its gross domestic product with its ethnic peers. That's not prevalent there. We'll be a music artist. We may be part of that distribution machine, but we don't own that domestic product that's grossly manufactured and distributed. Go ahead, Queen.
I think some of the things that we do come up with or try to market for ourselves, it either ends up being taken or made illegal. You know, when you think about running numbers, what the hell is the difference between running numbers and playing the lotto? Mm-hmm. When you think about back in the days when they had after hour spots, who did that better than us? What happened then? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, even when we do try to have something for ourselves, it's kind of like taken away. It's like these laws and these different how could I put it? I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's just the things that we do produce on a mass level. It's like you either have it taken away by laws, or you have to kind of incorporate it into a white supremacist structure to be able to win at it at all. So like Melvin was saying, if you think of an NWA or you think of a Master P and No Limit Records, what did they have to do in order to be big? He couldn't keep selling them damn CDs out the back of his trunk if he wanted to be rich. Mm-hmm. Your mixtape is only going to go so far if all you doing is selling it on the corner. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you're forced into the system. When you do have a grand idea or a big idea, look at Michael Jordan. He's selling all of those sneakers and everybody's mad at him, but he's not even really the one selling them. He doesn't even own his own name.
But the law
he has no control over how those sneakers are marketed because he doesn't own his name and his image and likeness. Think about that.
But he's educated. But that system is the economy of whose culture? The system of marketing, the system of distribution is whose construct in America? Where do we go
the white supremacist
to learn how to do that? Where do we go? Go ahead, Melvin.
I was going to say that's a white supremacist construct.
So when a person says, I have a Black-owned business, do they?
They got a Black-owned idea. That's like the beginning, middle, and end of that, because at a certain point, you have to do something within the system. You got to pay taxes on that business. Those aren't your Black-owned taxes. You got to pay rent on a building. Do you own that building? Unless you own the building, you paying rent to a white person to be able to be in that building. The products that are manufactured, are Black people manufacturing those products? Those little trinkets, those made in China trinkets, are Black people manufacturing those? No. So, I mean, you might have a 40% Black-owned business, and usually it's because the labor and the selling of it is your own. And outside of that, none of it belongs to you.
Deep. Now you went into the quantumization of things, the quantum mechanics of the system of white supremacy. It's not just a Black or white thing. We're talking about the systematic evolution of white supremacy that creates byproducts like racism and bigotry and competition and things like that. Those are just mere byproducts. But the quantum mechanics, the quantum physics of it all, when we look into the quantumization of white supremacy, we see that it's rather complex. Because at this stage of white supremacy, it is self-actuated and self-perpetuated. Because it's a system within a system. And like Miss Elliott said, we are quite ignorant, white and black, to the system. And because we don't know the quantum mechanics and physics of that system, we only take it for face value what it is. Look at the system from a socialist point of view. The degradation of the black family. Child support, let's use that as a subject matter. I talked about it earlier. Child support. Is it necessary in African culture, African American culture? Is child support necessary? Open the door to the panel.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, again, this is a question that's not easily answered. Is it necessary? I mean, from a perspective of a father who actually takes care of his children and who knows nothing but me and his family to take care of their children, absolutely not. I don't think it's necessary. But for as many positive examples as I can find within myself and within my own family, I can show you negative effects of where someone's not doing for their children or running from their responsibilities, and it would appear that it would be necessary. So, I mean, from my perspective, that's a question that's not easily answered. This is just going to really boil down to upbringing, your culture, your family. Like, how were you raised? That's what it's really boiled down to. You know, what examples have you seen? Are you a child who grew up in a single parent household where your father ran on you? So now you do the exact same thing when you have children. Or, you know what I'm saying? It's different scenarios and it's different situations, you know? So, I mean, that from my perspective, that's not easily answered.
Brother Melvin?
Yeah, I agree with Brother Heru. I don't think it's an easy answer. I would like to say no. I would prefer to say no, but you know, like you said, it just depends on the situation you're in. It's not really something that you can easily put it indefinite to.
Brother Hofka?
What you say?
Yes, is child support a valid construct for African Americans? And again, for the sake of this conversation, I'm using that term loosely for relativity, not subjectivity, just for objectivity. What we are classified as African Americans is child support, a system that is needed in our ethnic structure.
Well, if it's true, the conclusion that I've come to, that unfortunately we are retard versions of white people, it might be necessary. You know?
Okay. Queen Africa.
I think a better question would be, why is it necessary? And I think that a lot of times people just start and end with the mother and the father. You know, the mother and the father just need to do what they ought to do. They know that they have this child, they brought this child in the world, and they need to raise a child. And I think, and I know it's going to sound real cliche, but I still think that there's merit in it, that we have no sense of community. So if we did, then we wouldn't need that system. Because even if you had a mother and a father and they were both doing bad, then the community would step in and see to it that everybody had what they needed. If you're a father and you walk away from your children, then you couldn't go stand on a corner and talk to your friends, because your friends would be like, you're a damn loser because you're not taking care of your kids. If you're a deadbeat mom, you couldn't go sit in your mom's face, because your mom would look at you and be like, you need to take care of your damn kids, or you need to stop leaving them over here with me so you can go clubbing, or you need to go out and handle your business. And then your family and your community would be there to support you in some way so that you will be able to do that. And I think because there's a lack of support in our community, and it's kind of like every man for themselves, that's why we come to this place where things like this are prevalent. And then now you have to be in a situation where, well, I know I can't lean on this person. I know I can't ask him to help me. My mom's not going to help me. My family's not going to help me. His family's not going to help me. So I have no choice but but to go and sue him for child support. Because contrary to popular belief, not every woman who has a child with a man wants to do that. Some of us do it as a last resort because we have no other choice. Then, you know, at the end of the day, even if, you know, a lot of people will say, well, if someone seeks public assistance, then that public assistance, or you having to have public assistance, you're basically going ahead and you're condemning the child's father or whatever the case may be. But what exactly are you supposed to do in a situation like that? You're forced to do something not just because the father's not there, but because your whole community isn't there. Your family isn't there. You have no other choice. So why do we need to put people on child support is a more important question. Not just if you should. If your child is starving and you don't have no other resource, you damn well better do it. But why should you have to?
Well, let's look at it from this perspective. And I'm listening to the panel. I'm listening to a lot of people in the back chat. They're not touching this one. And I want to pose this paradigm out here. Who created the court system?
It depends.
Who has ownership of the court system, and who developed the court system here in America?
It depends on who you ask, and I say that because it's gonna sound funny, but I mean, there are people out here that say this. I mean, I think the majority of the population, no matter what color, what culture you come from, are gonna say the Europeans that came over here, they're the ones who created the court system. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's what majority of the people say. But you know as well as I do, there are small populations of us. Y'all hear me? Okay.
Small populations that what?
No, there's a small population of African Americans that say that our ancestors created the court system, the Moors. They say they're the one that we operate under Moorish law.
Right.
But I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I don't personally hold that position, but there are people that do hold that position.
Right. But let's say.
Well, I mean, but what do you mean? Like the present day court system, the way it is, or just the concept of having someone judge over your affairs? That to me is not a European construct. But the court system as it stands today is.
Yeah, I'm only talking about America and the consensus of America. I'm not talking about the ISA. The Moors are not recognized throughout America as even having a voice yet. We're only subject to that as Black people, or whatever you call yourself, right? We get subject to that.
Yep.
But you don't have white people going around talking about being a Moor.
Correct.
Or general consensus. See, this is also the quantumization of what we're subject to in our communities. Like if you go in what is classified, only classified as a white neighborhood, you won't see all of those different ideologies grouped on one block. It's not going to be done that way. So there's a central means of social interaction. And those are social groups that involved churches and synagogues are usually an oppressive group against a system. Nation of Islam, Black Panthers. We have a different scope on spirituality and religion. A lot of it's by means of revolution. So when I say this, I say it in the most ideal terms. But see, this is what we all do. Similar to what you said, Brother Heru, as African Americans. We don't know how to think idealistically because we never were put in an idealistic situation from the jump. You were never in an ideal situation in America, ever, since you started here. You walked dead into supremacy from the time you got here. Now, what goes on outside of here is mere observation and speculation. We even need to use European methodology to validate our speculation on what went on outside of here. But what went on here, you never had a say-so in it. You didn't have a say-so in the court system. Either you were lynched or not. You touched her, lynch him. Wasn't the court, that was our court system. Either hide and run or be convicted. When we talk about child support, we just automatically say the woman suing the father. But what happens when the woman gets sued by the father? Like that don't ever happen? We just automatically assume, based on a cultural precept, that we don't belong to. All black women don't file child support. Some black women get hit with child support court orders too. It ain't just one way around. But we assume that based on what's promoted to us in a system that we don't have control or vested ownership in. How many black or non-white Supreme Court judges are there at the highest level of the justice system? Where's our representation in the Supreme Court? Where's our representation in the Senate, in the House of Representatives? Conducive to the, oh, go ahead, King.
I was saying it's very minimal. Very minimal.
Very minimal. So these laws that are constructed on by forefathers, the courts are based on the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Articles of Incorporation. Go ahead.
We do have one Supreme Court justice, but that doesn't determine whether they're for us or not.
No, because it's not indicative of the population.
Right. The Clarence Thomas, he's the only non-white.
And there's no black woman.
No, she's a black man.
Yes. So we do not have fair representation in the body of law that dictates down to the lower district and circuit courts.
Yeah, but that's when you get into, fairness is not necessarily a part of the law.
Nope.
It was never meant to be fair.
It's what Queen Neferka is talking about, order, based on the society.
Yeah, it's order. Well, order isn't fair either.
Well, we're not going there. I ain't talking about no fair. I'm talking about who do you think you are and where do you think you are with your moral compass? The moral compass, if I sit here and I follow the law, the written law, how can a European understand what it's like for me to live culturally when they're writing those laws, when they're not me, when they're not part of my ethnic group, but they're writing laws on my behalf? They can say we're all equal. When were we all equal? When you were writing these laws? Because when those laws written, we were only 3/5. And they still haven't removed that moniker from the Constitution. We're still 3/5. We're not even human beings.
But see, I agree with you there. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand how we today, because I have to speak on us today, because there's a process in the making, how us today are Americanized. Those of us that are American citizens, whether you're African American or European American or whatever, you have been Americanized. And so you have an American identity. So those laws are going to go strategically for those who identify themselves as Americans. It's to benefit the American agenda, not necessarily to not benefit the African agenda. It's because you're Americanized that you have to live by these American rules and these American orders. But it's not supposed to single you out, because remember, we talk about this all the time. Black people today really aren't 100% African for culture-wise. The society is different. So therefore, your identity and your upbringing is going to be different. So the laws that are created are for the new upbringing, the new culture, not for who your ancestry is, but for who you've adapted to become.
Let me give you an example, Melvin. We are in here talking about how the system of white supremacy has even permeated our moral fibers that should be, an ideal world, should be ethnic based. Okay? But in the back chat right now, we got people debating about Bitcoins. The mere fact that we don't prioritize our culture because our lack of attention and persistence and consistency only validates the system of white supremacy. It only does. Because when you look at the court system, it is a third-party intervener in matters of commerce. CFR 72.11 in their law book. Code of Federal Regulations 72.11. All crimes are commercial in nature. So in matters of commerce is when third-party interveners come into play. So in matters of money is when we go and call the court to come in and intervene on private contract of culture between man and woman. Is the only time. And when we do that, we expect the courts to be sensitive to our cultural backgrounds. They are not. They are only sensitive to the written law that they established. They do not look at the quantum mechanics of the Black culture when they render a judgment. They look at a piece of paper and they look at what is called case law, and they case you on a case-by-case basis. They don't look at you as an individual. That has nothing to do with Bill of Rights or Articles of Incorporation, because those were consolidated in what's called a constitution. So these laws are all constituted and mixed up, and then they get amended and changed from their original meaning. And furthermore, get changed by jurisdiction locally before we even get our federal rights. We have to adhere to sovereign state rights. So in understanding the structure of law, and we don't understand that it's white supremacy organized, we are going to be confused about it when we're met with it. See, that's the most important issue, the ignorance. Why would I call a white attorney and a white lawyer, or a white judge, a white policeman to deal with my ethnic affairs and expect them to be compassionate to the father or the mother, or the child for that matter? They're going to act based on statistics and classification. You're Black, this is what you Blacks do. So boom, there's guilty or non-guilty. They tell the person, let's say the Black man, because it's most popular, who gets hit with child support, you can't leave the country. You can't go and get a better job. I'm going to suspend your license if you don't pay that check. I'm going to reduce you to a check. I'm not going to give you the ability to be able to be a father, because I'm only going to limit you in your own personal growth, because you're going to be obligated to the ward of the state. Your child and your child's mother are deemed wards of the state, and you owe us, the administrator. And I'm going to charge you and her a fee for administrating that check that I distribute to your family. And at the end of the day, I still want you to feel good about it. I still want you to maintain your peace of mind. And I still want you to be competitive with other white men in the same field.
That's the catch-22 for running a nation. That's how they're confusing. That's when you try to use ethnic, you try to use your ethnic base as a foundation for judgment, but instead you're dealing with the national government, so they're gonna judge your ethnicity nationally. They're not gonna judge it based on your ethnic background and what applies to your ethnic background. They're gonna take a national approach.
That's right.
And let that cover the entire aspect of judgment.
Yes.
And that's what you're dealing with.
Americans don't think individually. They think in terms of general.
But I agree. But when you're talking about law, when you're talking about judgment, when they do this, they're doing this from a national standpoint. It's because you're an American, you have to abide this way, because this is what we classify as the American way of operating. Not the white American or the Black American, because that's ethnics. And you need to go to an ethnic, you need to have ethnic courts, and you need to have ethnic lawyers that apply to that, so that way jury can at least understand that background. But in a national sense, they're not going to care because you're an American. Therefore, by you being a citizen, you automatically are in agreement with the laws, regardless of whether they change or updated.
Well, see, that's expressed legally. We just don't exercise it because we never had the ability to here. We were not peers. That is called tribal law or aboriginal law. We have a right as a tribe to have our own morals and ethics codes internationally. But here, we do not have a gross domestic product and we're not looked as equals in this casting system. So we don't have the ability to do it because we never had the ability to create a gross domestic product that we can equate with the gross domestic product of the world. In Africa, it's different because our gross domestic product can be the land and the seeds that we sow from it. This is why Africa has nation states, and each of them have their own ethnic-based court system that is not a universal system under one capital. There is no one capital of Africa, but there is one capital of the United States that gives out jurisdiction under federal law to sovereign compliant states that belong to a union called the United States of America. So it's not a black and white issue, people. It goes deeper than that. White supremacy takes away the culture of who you are. Because let's deal with common sense. What is deemed in the scholastic world as logic. But let's deal with common sense. If I had a problem with somebody that looked like me, why would I go to somebody that don't look like me and ain't part of my culture to solve me and that person's culture problem? Especially if it's commerce. But we don't control nothing in commerce. So we can't be represented in a court system that we have no stake in commerce in. So what makes you think you go into a courthouse for justice? What makes you think that if you got a local dispute with your fellow black person, that you actually gonna walk in the courtroom and get some justice between either one of y'all? You're gonna get charged with a bond, you gonna pay a lawyer, and you pay a lawyer, and you're gonna walk out there with less Federal Reserve notes than you had when you went in there. That's what's gonna happen. But it will not be cultural justice.
I agree. That's how the national government functions. That's national measures. That's what they're more concerned about. They're not concerned about anything else except the American nationality. That's what's important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Queen Neferka, from a black woman's perspective that's being oppressed, what do you say on these matters? Because I wish I had more sisters, as usual, but you on the hot seat. Give us your 2 cents. We need your opinion.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly where you want me to go with it. Like overall, what do I feel about this? Or
yeah,
just
because we in a condition, just to give you clarity, Queen, you're right. We in a condition that we necessarily don't have a solution for. So all we can do is put observations out there. So under your observation as a black woman under oppression and domination, what do you see? What do you feel?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you asked me, because I think a lot of what gets said, and you know, maybe a couple of the panel members will actually agree with this stance, even though I 100% don't. Because everyone is black, we all have the same kind of oppression. Nobody wants to acknowledge that the black man and the black woman have a different set of, or a different type of oppression under this system. So certain things that happen to a black man are not going to happen to me, and certain things that happen to me as a black woman is not going to happen to a black man. And I think my opinion about it as a black woman is that on a certain level, yes, I'm oppressed because I'm black, and I'm also oppressed because I'm a woman. It doesn't change just because I'm black. It's twofold. And when you say that as a black woman, the first thing that you get called is a feminist. And we've already covered that topic. But
we need to revisit it though. Go ahead, Quinn.
Yeah, we should. But I mean, you know, I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. Now, as a Black woman, I do think that the Black woman does get used as a tool in the Black man's oppression, and that a lot of times we do go along with it willingly because we think that on one hand we're winning when we're actually not winning at all. You're not winning because you get a child support check and your child doesn't know or is restricted in how they see their parent. That's not a winning situation. You're not winning when you get more incentive for raising your children and being single as opposed to being married, having a family unit. You're not winning that way. You know, there's certain, you know, even the Pell Grant, for instance, you get incentive for being a single parent in this world, but you're actually being oppressed in a way just as well because you're losing. You're losing when your success is dependent upon not having a Black man in your life.
Man. Woo.
So even when you want to get ahead as a Black woman, you're being told you can get ahead as long as you make the white government your daddy.
Get rid of that nigga, you can get it.
So, you know, and a lot of times the thing that doesn't get shown towards Black women in that regard is compassion. We're made to seem like we're arm in arm, or we're walking arm in arm with Uncle Sam, like we want it that way. When a lot of times we're just kind of left with no other choice, or we feel like we don't have another choice because that's how the system designed to make us feel. So I mean, there's a whole nother perspective when you're talking about how I feel as a Black woman in this. You know, I don't want to go on and on, but
no, that's power though. That's something that we need to hear. No, we need to be put in a position of having a problem with this. I mean, simple math. We don't need to be in this system, but that's a simple, clear-cut matter. It's easier said than done. By that's not even rational thinking that we can just detach. Idealistically, we don't need to be a part of this system, particularly when it comes to family matters. I'll say this, in my opinion, from observation. For a Black man or a Black woman to take each other to court over family social matters is treason to your ethnic group. For you to bring in a third party that does not have a relative understanding or the ability to empower you in your ethnic status is treason to your own kind. Because you are asking someone that does not understand your oppressive state to give you mediation, which just from the mere fact of its existence is racially biased. Because there's no white person in America that does not benefit from white supremacy. Even though you have white people, white supremacists, and non-white people, all white people benefit from white supremacy because they were in a position at some point to being supreme and have perpetuated that caste system ever since. And it has stopped. As a matter of fact, it is perpetuated to a high level of advanced systematic movement to the point we value scholarship based on a methodology that isn't even ours when it comes to learning and understanding things. Because we'll take a universal system versus an ethnic system of knowledge and deem ourselves worthy based on a universal system, henceforth the university. We will take what the university calls us and deem us as genius before we deal with, are we genius in our own ethnic right? Do we support our own center? What is our center? And are we knowledgeable of it? And do we pass it on? These are valid arguments and valid claims. So can we handle, or can we deal with the absolute truth? We are still in second place. We are still non-valued. And we don't have any more control than we did 500 years ago. Off code, what do you say to that?
I ain't hear the question, famo.
Oh, okay, man. I know they got you hostage with your wallet over there.
No, I'm good. I just didn't hear the question and what you were saying.
Okay. Do we have any more control? This may seem facetious, but it's sincere. Do we have any more control now, as non-white people, as we did 400 years ago?
Control as far as what? Be specific.
Okay. Our own ability to live in a system of justice.
Our own ability to live in a system of justice.
Yes.
Well, that kind of be like assuming that the system that we live in is just, wouldn't it?
That's why I said it may be facetious, but I'm not, everybody's listening to us. That's why I put it in that prose.
I don't know how to answer that, famo.
Anyone else on the panel?
You know what? That's a pretty crazy question. On the strength of, like he was saying, I mean, that, you know, that's almost attempting to assume that the system that we already exist in is valid and right and exact when we know it's not, of course. And do we have the ability to govern ourselves, honestly, or do we have the power? I mean, I think morally and ethically we do, but here's the thing. If we did adopt a system where we would only deal with each other amongst each other, wouldn't we run into an issue of the moral and the ethics of this European system that is already in place? Because what if we enacted a punishment, they deemed that not a good thing to do? I mean, you know, I mean, it's almost like you putting yourself in another quandary. I mean, it's real deep to me. I'm really deeply thinking about this question here. You know, I mean, that's what I can add to it as of right now. You know, because I mean, either way, it just seems like a catch-22 on our ends, because we know that the system that we exist in is horrible for us. But if we were able to create our own system and work within our own system, we still have to fear repercussion from the government per se, or the states per se, about how we do what we do with you know, within ourselves. After that.
So we would actually be able to recognize the system of justice in order to matriculate a system of justice. This is what I'm hearing from Brother Offco.
How would you enforce it if you had your own system?
Say that again, brother.
How would you enforce justice if you had your own system?
I would say the only way that what we're talking about would work is if we weren't in this land. We would literally have to be on our own accord in our own sovereign land for us to enact such a system that, you know what I'm saying, that would be specifically for us. Because I mean, America already has an established system, and at this current moment, it's not going anywhere known as of right now. So I mean, there's no way that we can get around what they're doing. If, you know, even if we tried, you know, we would have to be away from this land. I mean, we're talking about literally, if we did do something in this land, we already know what's gonna go down. You know, we talking about bloodshed. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game within itself. If we're gonna try to corner something for ourselves, I mean, it's hard to.
Why would that lead to bloodshed if we're adding to the governing of ourselves?
Because
but we have, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we have examples of that. You know, it's not like Native Americans don't govern themselves. They're sovereign nations.
Right.
nation. And look what the hell's going on with them. So what does it mean to be sovereign here? Not a damn thing, because they can still do whatever the hell they want when they want to. They give you
I'm not saying we need to be sovereign completely, but I'm just saying if you're gonna say, well, we don't govern ourselves, then what would it take?
But what does it mean to govern yourself here? That's my whole question. It's like you could feel like you're governing yourself here or be told that you're governing yourself, but you're really not governing yourself. And is it really putting you in a better position? If you look at Native Americans, right, where they live on their reservations, those are sovereign places where they're governing, quote, governing themselves. But look at what's going on with the DAPL. They could just build a pipeline on their land like, oh, well, we're going to do that. We don't really care that it's your land, but we're just going to do that shit. They're still impoverished, aside from those that got hit to the casino game and they decided to, you know, but for the most part, they're still impoverished. They're still undereducated. They're not in any better position than we are, except that they could say we're sovereign. That's the only difference.
Yeah. I agree with you. And even the casinos doesn't make them unimpoverished because most of those casinos are empty. You know, they have to actually plan events and whatnot to try to lure people to come in and spend money. So most of the time they're empty, especially when they build these giant hotels and whatnot. They waste a lot of money with that, hoping that, you know, when a big event happens, people will come by. So they're still impoverished, but just because it looks good, we assume that they're not.
Well, see, and let me give credence to the back chat. I think this was sparked on what Queen Neferka was just stating, and this is true. Truth Historian, I believe that's Brother Danny MBK. He says Hasidic Jews have their own courts. I agree. Mormons, Jews, they do it all day, every day. The Amish, they do it all day, every day. See, so there are examples of this happening, but there is a quantum construct in place here. Something we have to recognize as African Americans why we are not doing the same. Why are we not doing the same as these same ethnic groups of people that live on the same land, that are in battle with the same laws? So why are we not coming up with those concepts?
But that goes along with what I'm saying. You have people who are doing that and they're still being oppressed. The Amish and the Hasidic Jew are not any threat to this system.
That's true.
I'm just saying
the ability to even matriculate it. No, I'm not saying it makes them any better. No. I agree.
Right. Like okay, I'll put out an example. In the case we were discussing child support earlier, you know, a lot of times we let, you know, the national government decide whether that's a go or not. Why not put something in place for us within the current system that we're in to govern ourselves pertaining to that matter or other matters that are ethnically proposed? So instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go to the government, I'm going to go to government police to do this, this, and this, why not have a system within the system that only works for us?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's understandable. I mean, we see other ethnic groups doing that, and even in some cases, we had systems like that amongst each other, and at certain periods. I mean, you got to think back in the days. You had us. We had a street code we lived by. We had an ethic code we lived by. You know, it was frowned upon that you mess with women and kids, and you were dealt with. You know, we at some point we lost that family structure. We lost that moral code that we had to the point where anything goes nowadays. You know,
I agree.
We lost that. There was a code at one point in time.
I agree, and I think that code was not properly organized because, you know, even though people were dealt with, you know, some people still did it regardless.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think that if that system was properly organized the way it should have been, it would have been proper penalizations for it, and people would have been a little bit more reluctant. Not saying that they would have completely stopped it, but would have been a little bit more reluctant towards it.
And part of this goes back to a little bit of what the council was saying too. You got to understand the current state of an African American, because we definitely can set up systems for us to work within this system. But see, the thing is, there are going to be race traders. There are going to be treasonous people who are going to make it their business to go outside of the paradigm that we created for ourselves in order to get the European cracker in our business. So then we're going to run into situations where, okay, now they're invading us, and now they're, they got us on investigation, and now they're punishing everybody. Because for what seems to happen is every time we get something for ourselves, there are people amongst ourselves that just cannot contain themselves.
Shouldn't there be a penalty for that? Shouldn't there be? Because that's like if you have an issue. It's like if you have an issue within your state. The national government is well organized to the point where you can have an issue within your state, and if you don't go through your city or state courts first, the higher courts won't even give you any attention until you go see them first.
Okay, now watch this. This is the thing. I mean, if we're gonna go off the, let's do America. The punishment for high treason is death. Okay, life imprisonment. I mean, punishment for treason is pretty harsh in the United States of America. All right, now when we get down to our level of governing ourselves, and we have situations where people are treasonous, you have to understand that once we do set these things up, but we attempt to set these things up, once someone leaves our paradigm and goes out and commits treason against their own people, to go get Europeans or anybody else involved in our affairs, that person is usually protected by those same people that he went to go get in a business. So it's not an easy thing to get back to that individual at that point. So of course, the punishment for such things should be harsh. I'm not saying death or anything. I wouldn't say that, but I mean, yes, obviously it should be harsh, because now you have taken a situation where we're trying to build something for ourselves, and you're getting other people involved, which is the reason, which is the direct opposite reason of why we created this system. So we could keep people out, so we can do our own thing. We can do, do what we can for each other.
I want to put this out here that we are addressing, I wanted this to address the now. Us being able to be objective to what we've been subject to and are still being subject to. Where we are now pales into comparison of where we want to be. Regardless of whatever hypotheses we could come up with, regardless of that, right now, we are not treated as human beings equally, with justice in mind. There's no justice system. And we are in a position of oppression that has become habitually repressive on different levels from different aspects. And what we need to start coming to the grips with is the fact that we are less than. What we think we have, we don't have. And because we want to be put in the state of euphoria, we want to think that there's somewhere in America, or maybe even the world, but I can't see the world from where I'm at because I'm in America. So I'm not going to try to psych myself up to figure out what it's like in Africa. I know what it's like in America. And in America, where is freedom? Where is it ringing? Where is your sovereignty? Where is your independence? What are your rights, and are they human rights? Where's all these things that they claim we have? Where are they? Where is Black power? Show me Black power in America, in Africa, in Asia, in the Honduras, or either South America for that matter, Central America. Antarctica. Show me where we have black power, where it's all ours, don't belong to nobody else, and can't nobody tamper with it. So why do we scream it?
What is it?
Where is it at? Show me.
What is it?
Right. Define it by giving me the empirical proof of it.
Right.
That's all I'm asking. Because on one hand, we want empirical data on everything else.
You know what? Why we playing games with it? Why we playing games with it? It don't exist.
It don't exist.
It don't exist.
And prime example to the misunderstanding, like I said before, I'm sitting here talking about what's going on in the real world, and we talking about Bitcoins and digital money and shit and Moors, all conversations I'm seeing in the back chat. We live now, talking about your conditions right now, and you're reducing it to polarities. But when you walk outside your door, who and what are you right now? Can you actually do something about it? Actually, as black men, I can only speak for the black men because I'm a black man, right? Do you have power to protect your children? I know I don't. Do you have the power to change the course of your family? I don't. Because where is your ownership? What is your gross domestic product based on your ethnic group? What do we have a stake in this world stage? We say we kings and protectors. Can you really protect your woman? Your queen? Can you protect your home? Logically, no. You cannot protect anything. With what? What, you gonna get some guns? Now that does not mean that we're being pessimistic. We're being realistic because we're being fed idealistic bullshit. Why do we take martyrdom as a sense of progress? Why is martyrdom accepted as progress in our paradox? The white supremacist wants to keep living on and on and on. We say, man, die for your cause. Die proving your point. You'll be honored when you're dead. Yo, you'll be dead when you're dead. That's what that is. But the white supremacist lives on and on and on and on and on. So much so that white people who aren't even supremacists benefit from the supremacists that live on and on and on and on. Because they have what is called legacy. Where's our legacy? What are we sending our children to? What are they inheriting? So before I close, because we've exhausted this, we're probably the next series of events are going to deal with black relationships, man and woman. I think that's the core of our problem. Me personally, is the man and woman. But I'll close by opening the floor to Queen Neferka, and then the panelists will follow. So Queen Neferka, what are your observations and words of wisdom that you want to share in closing?
I don't want to close.
Oh, okay. Well, we never close right away. We never close right away. So
I think we could have went so many different ways, but I think it was a powerful discussion to have. As far as words of wisdom, I mean, I've said this so many times, but I just think, thinking, critical thinking, imperative, not feel good thinking, not emotional thinking, psyching yourself up, feeling like just having some African ancestry is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to know the truth about certain things. So I think this was a powerful discourse, and I'm grateful to be a part of it as always. I think we should do we need to discuss when it comes to this. And there was a lot of things that I wanted to add, but Haru kept talking too much. So I kept saying,
oh, hell no. Hell no, that's bogus.
Don't talk so much, so then I could talk some more, okay?
Wow.
Damn.
The hate is real. The hate is real, Haru.
That hurt. I already know what this. I know what this is stemming from. It's the New York thing. I know. I'm sorry. That's what.
Dead ass, B. Dead ass,
Yeah.
B.
The pettiness never ends.
Petty Crocker, right? Go ahead, John. Yeah, the panel's still open. Well said, Queen. We can still laugh through the pain, y'all. You know, it is what it is. But start asking those questions, man. Start looking at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, you know, what role are you playing? What have you done positive today in regards to your constructive growth? Everybody gonna have an opinion about what they can do. But as African people that happen to be in America, what you gonna do? I've even heard, this just on my mind, I gotta say this before we close. And it may be a subject matter of another show that I'm gonna give to, I think Brother Haru can really express this on this show, but indigenous people. Let me say this. Let me say this. And we're gonna segue into another show. I think it needs to be tackled. You indigenous or what you indigenous? Educate me. Where's Black Power at, and what are you indigenous to?
Yeah, educate us all.
Here
it is.
You indigenous to this land? You own this land?
I've been
Who
waiting.
you gonna take it from? Indigenous people. Who you gonna take it from? You tried to take it from Custer, and what happened? Who won that one? So you indigenous to?
Hey, let's be honest. We know those indigenous people. They just want casinos and hotels and to live on a nice, consolidated piece of land. That's all they really want.
Hold on. This is how smooth white supremacy is. The indigenous people that own the hotels still don't look like your ass.
Nope.
The indigenous people that own the hotels got blue eyes.
Wait. I'm sorry, but you said the indigenous people still don't look like us.
No.
That meme with Pharrell and that Native American dude, that looked like Pharrell.
Look like who?
Pharrell.
Pharrell don't own no casinos.
That's because somebody photoshopped his face onto it.
Oh.
Nah, they didn't Photoshop it. That was his grandfather.
I don't. Every time I see a Native American in America, they look a certain way, and they sure don't look like us.
They look Asian to me, man.
Man, Paul Mooney look, Paul Mooney looked like that Native American dude in that meme. He
did. See, what's funny, and we had the issue with Dr. Issa, the PhD, the master scholar, according to the European. Our grandma tell you look like you got Indian in your family because your hair nice. But it's a thing called genetics and the evolution of science that changes all of those arguments. So when you say I'm indigenous, for some reason you tend to think that goes beyond the scope of white supremacy. But you're still non-white and you're still governed over. You think that you got a reservation they can't walk on? It's called eminent domain. They'll walk right on your shit. If I can fly over to another part of the world and kill your president, you think I can't go to a state that I govern and deal with you? So I can go to Iraq, land in a person's front yard, walk in their house, up the steps, shoot you in the eye in front of your children and your wife, grab you, take you from your house dead, put you on the plane, and then identify your body back in the States. But I can't go to Colorado and kick that little gate down that you got talking about don't enter.
Hashtag BHL.
Where's the logic in that? Give me some logic, indigenous folk. What you gonna use, bows and arrows and shit? Because if you buy a gun, you're gonna buy it from the company that works for the government that gave you the license to carry the damn thing. Where is your origin?
Some bows and arrows. That's what they're gonna use.
You see what happened to the lady that tried to burn the sage at the protest? They damn knocked the sage out of her hand and handcuffed her ass.
Handcuffed her ass.
I'm gonna say this real quick about this indigenous. I ain't gonna even touch on it because we gonna segue somewhere else on that. But I'm gonna say this. One thing about the cracker and everybody else in this world is, I don't care about all the conjecture you use, all the nonsensical arguments you make. They never hid who we were from us. They knew who we were the whole time, and they never let up off of it. And we understand who we are through genetics, through history. We understand who we are. We know where we come from. But people don't want to deal with the reality of what happened to us. So they decide to create paradigms that have nothing to do with us because they can't take it. So trust and believe. We're going to kill this.
And let me say, respectfully, we're speaking objectively. If you want to be Cherokee, Choctaw, Yamasee, Soy, do that really matter? It don't. South side, west side, I don't know what you want to be. Okay. If you're non-white, you're going to be dominated by white supremacy. That's it. So it don't matter what you claim. Ain't nobody trying to invalidate you. You can go get your dolls rolls. You can do whatever you want to do. No power to you. You want to wear feathers and stuff, dance, rain dance. That's cool. I'm so serious. I ain't even being funny. But at the end of the day, you still dealing with white supremacy because you are already classified as non-white. Your ancestors never benefited, and you are not creating anything to make your descendants beneficiaries of any ownership. And one of the major issues is the way that we have, what type of nomenclature. We don't have a universal nomenclature. We don't have a language that personifies our culture, that we can be relative to, that we can speak and understand each other constructively, because we use certain precepts and connotations based on another culture's observation of us, instead of our own subjective actions. And because we don't have an understanding of the linguistical, neuro-linguistic effects of us as people, then we can't actually conceptualize liberation. Because we'll take certain words and just run with it, just off the top. I'm indigenous. You just like it ain't shit. Not knowing that everybody was born on this damn land. I'm indigenous to Chicago, Illinois. Shit, I was born in Cook County. The hell I got to do with anything?
All right, Kundalini sparking, baby.
Hey, Cole, don't start, man.
I'm about to get my crown chakras popping. God damn it.
Ah, man.
This melanin explosion, goddamn.
Melanin explosion?
Hey, man. That's
melanin explosion.
That's that Blackfoot in me, man.
Oh, man.
That's
the polymer in your blackness.
Yeah, that's that Blackfoot Cherokee in me, man. That's coming from the bluffs of St. Louis, Missouri.
Well,
I do want to touch back on some shit you was just saying though, Famo.
Hey, go ahead, kid. Go ahead, man.
You know, we had conversations and shit. That's something I talk about. The universal nomenclature, not necessarily creating a different language. For example, y'all were talking about W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, double consciousness, right? Those are, you know, two English terms that he put together and he defined. You know, we can't leave that shit up to our open enemies to define shit for us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily saying, you know, coming up with some, I don't know, maybe something like the Famo polite and shit, you know, I don't know, maybe that works for him. You know, he say he created, I don't know how many languages. You know, but you know, maybe that works. You know, it ain't came to the D. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Wait,
you know,
who created languages? Wait, I missed that last part.
I've heard that Polite created I don't know how many languages, you know, personal languages that he created. I'm like,
Yeah. He's fluent. He's fluent in bullshit. That's what he's fluent in. He speaks that flawlessly.
I don't know. You know, we could you know, come up with our own terms and define.
But the idea is there. Yes, sir. The idea is there.
So when we're communicating with each other across these paradigms and shit, you know that when I'm saying this, whether you're more or whatever, this is what the fuck I mean. Okay, so we ain't got to go into the whole bullshit that we normally go through talking about, but you know what I mean. I don't know what the fuck you mean. I know what you said. Now, if you want me to put you in my own context, don't get mad when I do it.
No question. For those who are history buffs, Hugh Scott Herring, James Brown, Earth, Wind and Fire, Miles Davis, Isaac Hayes, Curtis Mayfield, Gladys Knight and the Pips. These were the griots that used to speak in code in music. If you listen to music, y'all was put music. It was information in that music. So information is all about collective data, how you perceive and process. It doesn't always have to be words. Sometimes it's action. Sometimes it's environment, how you communicate and reciprocate. Altruism is an act of selflessness. How can you be selfless in an animalistic state? When you're in survival mode, shit, you're just trying to eat. You can hear, man, eat the McDonald's is poison. But what if that's all you got to eat? Is it poison or is it survival? There's 6 degrees of separation in anything. But the white supremacists do not waste their time digressing on the perils of non-white people. They don't. If they did, we would know about it. They don't seem, it seemed to be business as usual. So it's nothing wrong. You know, I value history, you know, science, knowledge, and all that stuff. I value it to a degree. But I promise you, when you figure out who built the pyramids, your black ass still got to deal with these white supremacists. When you get the answer to the pyramids, let me know. And go tell the white supremacist and see what he do with them. Or Moors ain't real and Hebrews are. Hebrews ain't real. And this one, when you find out that answer to whether Moors are right or not, please go tell the white supremacist so he can help us out. Give us a break. Okay, Moors. Okay, Hebrews. Okay, Christians. Okay, whatever. When you guys figure that out, go tell the white supremacist because he seems to not give a damn. He or she don't give a damn about none of that shit. So when you figure that out, let me know. Let us know. We want to get on y'all train. Get the hell out of here. But this was an engaging conversation. I just wanted to stimulate your mind, stimulate your thoughts. Get you to thinking between the 1 and the 2. And, you know, really dealing with the truth and fact, not just the truth by itself. You got to deal with the truth in fact. So that being said, and this is your boy Khonsu Sheshmu Amun, Team Osiris. We out.